Today on La Jaula del Noob, we're joined by one of the global references in cybersecurity. Our guest is Mikko Hypponen, a security researcher with over 30 years of experience analyzing malware, cybercrime, and global digital threats. He has witnessed the evolution of cybercrime from early computer viruses to today's organized digital criminal groups and is one of the most critical voices on the future of security, privacy, and technology. Mikko, welcome to La Jaula del Noob.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We're very excited to have you on our podcast. We truly admire your work and your career. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm coming to you straight from Helsinki, Finland. And here in Finland, in December, it's very cold and it's very dark. The day is getting very, very short. We only have a couple of hours of sunlight in the middle of the day. Otherwise, it's dark. So it's the darkest time of the year. We're all waiting for Christmas.
We always ask our guests this first question. How did you get started in the world of computing, and how did your passion for cybersecurity begin?
Well, I started programming in 1983 on a computer made by Nokia. And you might remember Nokia as the mobile phone manufacturer. It's a very old company, started already in 1880, I believe. They used to make computers, and my school, when I was a teenager, had Nokia CP/M computers. I started programming those, and then a year later, we got a Commodore 64 into our home. I was 14 years old. This is March 1984. No, 1983. March 1983. And I still have my Commodore 64 today. Very quickly, I started writing programs and selling programs. I wrote on that Commodore, different kind of utilities, and a commercially published a game series. So I used to make games before I got into viruses and cybersecurity. And of course, I got into cybersecurity because one of my computers got infected with a virus around 1990, somewhere there. I had a PC at the time, a 386 running MS-DOS 5, and it got infected with a virus called Crew. And I analyzed it, and then a couple of months later, I got a job, and that company was doing security research, so I was assigned to do security research. And that's what I've been doing for almost 35 years.
It's a very interesting story of life. Hi, Mikko. It's a true pleasure to share this space with you and to have a conversation with such a global benchmark in cybersecurity. Greetings from Ecuador, South America, right here in the middle of the world.
Yes.
It's a sunny day in Quito,
Yes.
in the capital.
I'm certain the weather is very different in Ecuador.
Yes, it's so sunny, so hot in this moment. Mikko, my first question, you have often mentioned that smart usually means vulnerable. What do you think about the IoT devices that exist in homes and offices? Are they a risk for the users?
Well, yes, they are, but unfortunately, we're not going to get rid of them. IoT and connected devices have become a fact of life, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have to accept the fact that when a technology becomes good enough, when it's useful enough, that technology becomes mandatory. Eventually, we don't want to live without it, and then we even can't live without it. An easy example of that would be electricity. Nowadays, we think electricity has been around forever. It's been around 150 years. That's when most cities started to get electric grids. And that's not such a long time when you think about it from a bigger perspective. But during those decades, the mankind completely become reliant on electricity. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening now with connectivity. Right now, our modern societies can't function without electricity. In the very near future, we can't function without connectivity. We're already very close. Like if the internet goes down, businesses suffer. But what I do mean is that our societies won't be able to feed their people without connectivity. We're not there yet. We can't feed our people without electricity, but I guess we could feed them without connectivity. In 10, 20 years, we won't be able to do that. And a very practical example of this revolution is the fact that when you go and buy a device, you take the device home, then you will plug it into two different grids, the electricity grid and the internet grid. This applies to your security cameras or your televisions or your ovens in your kitchen. Everything is going online. And as we add functionality and connectivity into everyday devices, they obviously become hackable. If it runs code, it can be hacked. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to happen whether we like it or not.
Exactly. Hey, how's it going, mate? You're right. Glad to meet you.
I love the Rubik's cubes in your background.
Ah, really? Cheers, mate. Actually, I cannot change my background. You know, it's kind of difficult here in my stack. But anyway, maybe I am showing too much in it.
Maybe.
Maybe. Anyway, so you know, you was talking about it's really, for me, it's really concerned. You know, everything is connected, but you cannot do anything about it. Yeah. It's kind of, you know. But you know, actually, I want to talk something quite different. For example, on a daily basis, what does your personal AI stacks look like? Let me explain a little bit. When you are mastering AI tools, how do you balance their usefulness without your concerns about privacy and data exports? You know, when you are using your AI tools, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about your exposure? How do you feel about your privacy?
Yeah, it's a great question because obviously data is the key reason why the generative AI revolution happened right now. The first time I read about artificial intelligence was in the 1980s. They were already writing about how one day all of mankind's knowledge and all the books and all the research will be data, because in 1980s everything was still on paper. Obviously you can't feed paper into computers, but over the last 40 years this happened. All the new books are, of course, ebooks and PDFs. All the old books have been digitized in all languages. All the newspapers, all the articles, all the research, everything is data, which means we can feed it into computers. And if these AI companies like Microsoft and OpenAI and Google, if they want to keep growing their generative AI capabilities, they need more data. And of course, when we use these things, we give them data. So it's a very natural cause for concern. Will these AI chatbots take my information and use it to train future versions of these chatbots? Will it leak my information? And some of them will. It really depends on the engine you use. Now, a very good starting point is that if you're not paying for the chatbot you're using, it's more likely that they will collect the data and use it for different purposes, most likely to train future models. If you pay for it, then it's more likely that they will actually follow the policies they give you. And I think maybe the best example of this is Microsoft Copilot. Nowadays, for those of you who run Windows, of course, I'm a Linux fan myself, coming from Finland. I went to university together with Linus Torvalds while he was writing the Linux kernel in 1991. But if you run Windows, and of course many companies run Windows, Windows now comes by default with Copilot. It's sitting right there in the desktop. So I'm getting a lot of questions from companies that, hey, can we trust Copilot? Can we put corporate secrets and client information into Copilot? Microsoft tells us that they're not using that information and that they're not storing that information. Can we trust Microsoft? And my answer to these people every time is that, well, you trust them already. You're running Windows already. If you wouldn't trust Microsoft, why are you running their operating system? If Microsoft wanted to steal your information, they could have stolen it 20 years ago. You're running their goddamn operating system. It can do anything with your data. The fact that they now have Copilot on the system changes nothing. So you have to choose the vendors you work. You have to go through the policies they set on the data you give to them. And then once you've chosen your vendors, you have to trust your vendors. We can't use these systems without picking the trusted partners and then actually trusting them.
Yes. My next question is about the evolution of cybercrime involving the ransomware gangs. What do you think about the ransomware attacks and the data leaks?
I think ransomware is probably the biggest new threat we've seen in the last 12 years. We found Crypto Locker and Crypto Wall in 2013. And what made them different from all the previous ransomware was Bitcoin. They were the first ones to use Bitcoin as payment mechanism. We have seen ransomware before that, but they were a small problem. In beginning with Bitcoin-enabled ransomware, it was a much smaller problem because for the first 2 years, they were basically only targeting home users. They were not going after companies at all, which now sounds crazy because, of course, today, ransomware is only a problem for companies and organizations. There are no ransomware operations targeting home users today at all. It's all going after companies. But 12 years ago, when the problem started, they were basically encrypting your home PC and asking you to pay $200 to get your pictures back. That's what it used to be in the beginning. It started getting bigger and bigger. The targets changed from home users into corporate targets and public organizations. And the ransom payments increased from hundreds of dollars into millions of dollars. And it is the biggest single problem for companies today. And it's not really the problem that they encrypt your data. It's the problem that they will leak your data if you don't pay the ransom, because backups don't help you at all if it's a question that they will leak your email archives and your future patents and your future plans and all confidential things like that. And the real core of the problem is that the largest ransomware gangs have become very large, very powerful, and very wealthy. I'm here in Finland, so I'm right next door to Russia. Where I live, this is 2 hours away from the Russian border. The largest ransomware gangs in the world operate from Russia. And right now they seem to have a pretty good situation from their point of view because international law enforcement can't reach them and they are not targeting Russian targets. They go to great lengths to target organizations in Europe and in North America and in South America and in Asia because they know that the Russian law enforcement doesn't really care as long as the targets are elsewhere. And law enforcement from outside of Russia can't reach them, especially now as long as the war rages on in Ukraine. And these large ransomware gangs like Akira and Play and Black Pasta and Global and Lockbit, they've become unicorns. If you would look at their valuation as if they would be companies, they would be considered to be unicorn startups. They have huge amount of money at their disposal. They run their operations like companies. They have physical offices, their employees have holidays, they have HR departments, they have lawyers, they have business analysts working for them. This is organized crime. And if organized online crime gangs is a problem, wealthy organized online crime gangs is even a bigger problem.
Are we losing the fight against cybercrime, or are we just learning to live with it?
We're not losing the fight against cybercrime, but we're not winning it either, unfortunately. When you look at the situation between defenders and attackers, we always used to think that the attackers, the first movers, they have the benefit, because you cannot imagine all possible attacks. So how can you defend against an unknown attack? Which means the attacker, when they invent a new attack mechanism, they always have the upside. It was made even better from the point of view of the attacker during the old times, when they could simply download or buy all firewalls and or EDRs and all antivirus systems and test their attacks on their own systems before starting to use them in real attacks. Now, the situation has gotten better. And I think one of the main reasons why the situation is better today is artificial intelligence. We worry a lot about attacks enabled by AI. And of course, we have seen attacks enabled by AI. Online criminals use AI just like we all use AI. They write more code with it. They use it in deepfake attacks, certainly. But right now, in my opinion, defenders benefit more than attackers. If you look at modern security solutions, more often than not, they're not trying to find badness, but they're trying to find weirdness. So if you're trying to detect badness, you should know what you're looking for. Like, what's bad, what's good? Basically, you're trying to detect all the things you can imagine. But if you're not trying to detect badness, but weirdness, that's a different ballgame. There you're simply trying to find odd things happening. And this is where AI shines. You take a large enterprise operating in 30 countries, you take logs from all the gateways and firewalls and the workstations, millions and millions of lines of logs, and you give them to an AI model, which will read them through in an hour. And then you can start asking questions like, do you see anything weird happening? Or, this is what normal looks like. Let's take a look tomorrow and you tell me if there's anything abnormal happening. That's something that humans are really bad at. They can't read millions of lines of logs. AI is great there. And it will tell you that, hey, these two servers in different countries, they've been online for 6 years. They've never spoken to each other. Last night, they started speaking to each other. What's happening here? And that might not be badness. There might be a perfectly valid reason why it's happening. It might not be an attack, but it might also be an attack. It might be the first sign of someone doing lateral movement inside a network they just got into. So these kinds of these kinds of defense systems, this is very hard for attackers to bypass. They can't just download the products and figure out if they would detect our attack. The only place where they can test these systems is in the network of the victims. And if they test it in the network of victims, they will get caught. So AI is leveling the playing field between the attackers and the defenders.
It's very interesting to talk with you, Mikko. My next question is moving on the cyber warfare. What is your perspective on nations that export cybercrime, specifically countries like North Korea or Russia that seem to use the state-sponsored hackers as a primary source of national revenue?
Governments use offensive cyber attacks for different purposes. traditionally, historically, it was only espionage. The first governmental attack I was analyzing was in 2003. I still remember I was working at F-Secure at the time, and we got a sample to our labs from a defense contractor in Europe. And we spent several days figuring it out. And finally, we deducted it was the People's Liberation Army of China doing spying attacks on European defense contractors 22 years ago. During those 22 years, espionage and spying with online attacks became the norm. What are spies trying to do? Spies are trying to steal information. Information used to look like this. It used to be on paper. It used to be something you had to go to be able to. I mean, if you want to steal the paper in this binder, you have to come to my home, right? You have to come to Finland to get it. But if you want to steal the files from my phone, at least in theory, you could do it from anywhere in the world. That's the difference. So, of course, espionage and spying became digital during these last 2 decades because of this reason. But then we also started to see sabotage attacks. So not just stealing information, but also destroying information or even destroying systems. So attacks on electricity grid causing blackouts. Of course, the famous Stuxnet attack in 2010, 15 years ago in Iran, destroying centrifuge systems. And then during wartime, we've seen several cyber war attacks. For example, in Ukraine, which I follow very closely because I live not too far away from Ukraine, we are seeing fighting every day on land, on sea, in air, in space, and in cyberspace. So it has become one of the domains where wars are being fought. And Russia, that you mentioned, is one of the prime attackers with both espionage attacks, but also these operational attacks. And then we have the odd one out, which is North Korea. North Korea is the only government in the world which has been using governmental attacks to steal money. They've done it over and over again. It is the most sanctioned country in the world. It's very hard to move money around for North Korea because of the sanctions. So they go to currencies that you cannot sanction, cryptocurrencies. And they've been doing a lot of heists. In fact, they've done the biggest heist in history, biggest thefts in mankind's history. Like if I ask you, like, what's the biggest theft that we've ever seen, we start thinking about bank robberies or diamond heists or break into a museum to steal Picassos. And we've seen those, and they've been worth millions and tens of millions. However, the Axie Infinity cryptocurrency heist done by North Korean governmental hackers was $625 million. That was last year. This year, the Bybit hack was $1.5 billion. And they got the money, they laundered the money went into fixing the North Korean budget deficit. Most likely the money went to fund their nuclear arms program. So it's very odd, but there really is a country which is hacking other countries to steal their money.
I'm agree with that. And it's really concerned. You know, I was thinking right now, a lot of things, you know, but this is something more personal. You know, for you, how it's like after spending decades tracking threats, detecting malware, and warning the world about privacy risk, how has all of that shaped the way that you live your own life offline when you are disconnected from the world? How affect in your mindset or in your life? Has it changed? How do you trust people? How's your relationship with your people? Or even the way you raise your kids in this fucking digital world? How do you feel about it?
Well, it sort of comes with the territory. When you work with security, any kind of security, but definitely also with cybersecurity, you will become paranoid. And of course, you know this. You're paranoid as well. You're constantly worried about you're worried about getting hacked. And if something weird happens with your computer, you spend the rest of the day trying to figure out why it happened. And it's something that you can't avoid. And yes, I mean, I've been involved in tracking down organized crime gangs. I've worked with law enforcement. I've been part of indictments, which means you get threats. That also comes with the territory when you try to be the good guy among the bad guys. Bad guys don't like you when you make their operations fail. So I guess the real answer is that, you try to protect your systems in the online world, and in the real world, you try to follow proper OPSEC. And of course, proper OPSEC involves that you try to minimize the information you share about yourself. So that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to make it at least somewhat difficult to figure out personal details out of my life, but it's surprisingly hard to do today when everybody's living their lives online.
Yeah. My next question, I want to talk about the exploit selling. What can you tell us about the exploit selling in the dark forums, and in contrast with the bug bounty? Because when the people is trying to do research, the companies pay a little bit and the underground pay more.
Sure. Well, I like bug bounties. Bug bounty programs are great for many reasons. Of course, not all companies can run bug bounties. You have to be mature enough. You have to have done your homework. So when you actually open up your systems to a bug bounty, you don't get flooded with millions of real bugs, which you should have found yourself before you open it up. But once you're mature enough, bug bounties are a great idea. And I also love bug bounties because I meet a lot of young people who are itching to hack. They have some skills. They would love to do nothing more than break into systems. And it's great because I can tell them, yes, why don't you go and break into Apple or Google or hack into a Tesla? Because they all run bug bounties. You can do this legally. You're not breaking any laws when you hack into Google or Apple or break into a Tesla, as long as you follow the bug bounty rules. And if you actually are able to do it, if you actually get in, they will pay you money for it, which is exactly what we want them to do. Now, to answer to your question, there's all these dark forums and exploit buyers who offer more money than the official bug bounties. The going price for Android and iPhone 0 days are in multiple millions today for a complete exploit chain. And that's much more than what you would be getting from Google or Apple for the individual vulnerabilities. So it is tempting for some people to go and sell them to the highest bidder instead of doing the right thing, which would be to report them, because when you report them to the vendor, they will fix it, and then everybody is safer. When you sell it to an exploit vendor, it will never be reported to the software vendor itself, which means everybody on the whole planet stays vulnerable. Now, does this mean that mobile systems that I mentioned, like Android and Apple, are insecure because there's exploits exist for them? Actually, no. Actually, it proves the opposite. The going price for a code execution exploit for Mac OS or for Windows, they are much, much cheaper than for mobile systems, because it's much, much harder to exploit mobile systems, which is a very clear and concrete testament on how mobile systems are far more superior in security, because they have much shorter legacy. iPhone was released in 2007. Windows was released 40 years ago. Yeah, it just turned 40, which is insane. So these more restrictive and more modern operating systems are much more secure. And you can tell that by just looking at the prices that these vendors that buy exploits are paying for mobile exploits. And that's why I recommend to use mobile devices when you need to do something really important. Let's say you're buying a house and you have to wire the down payment for your house. Don't wire the down payment from your Windows laptop. Send it from your iPhone. It's much, much more likely that your iPhone will do it without you losing your money.
Do you think cybercrime could become more profitable than drug trafficking?
No, I don't. I don't think that it is more profitable, and I don't think it will be more profitable. And I know that you can easily Google for this, and there will be tons of sources which will tell you that it's already a bigger problem or more profitable than that drug trade, or 10 times more profitable than drug trade. I don't believe that. I'm not believing those statistics. I think those are bullshit statistics. How do you even make statistics on this? How do you know how much money drug lords are actually making? How do you know how much money cybercrime gangs are making? These are just estimates, wild estimates. And of course, cybercrime is big, it's huge, and it's growing very fast. I don't think it's as big as drug trade. Drug trade, in my civilian opinion, is much bigger than cybercrime, but they're both too big, and they both share the problem that we can measure either how much money the criminals are making, or we can measure how big problems and how large losses are they causing for their victims. Imagine the cost of drug trade to healthcare and the human suffering. Imagine the cost of cybercrime to victims of cybercrime, like companies getting hit by ransomware or data leaks, data breaches, denial of service attacks. So these are two different things: the amount of money they actually pocket and the losses they generate. And this is something I often talk about when I have meetings with large companies, especially with the top management. When I have sessions with leadership teams or board members, and we speak about cybercrime. And when you have the strategy people or the financial people or the chief executive officer or the board members in the room, these are not technical people. They're not engineers. They're not coders. They might be top experts in their own field or in finance or in strategy, but typically they don't understand technology as well as we would hope. But what they do understand is risk management. That they do understand very well. And that's why I speak to them about cyber and cyber risk and how it's just like any other risk. And you should manage it like any other risk. So if you have a factory, you have to worry about things like fire. If you have a fire which burns down your factory, that's going to shut you down. So of course you manage the risk. You install sprinklers. You have firefighting equipment. You train your people. You have smoke detectors. And then you have insurance against fire. All right? Now, if you worry about fire, you don't really need to worry about the scenario where someone or a group of people would try to burn down your factory every day after every day after every day after every week, trying over and over and over again until they succeed. That's not a realistic threat. But with cyber risk, like with ransomware, that's exactly what they're doing. They're scanning your network with different vulnerability scanners every day, over and over and over again, until you expose a vulnerable machine or until they have an exploit for something that you haven't patched. And then they will get in, and then they will shut you down with the ransomware attack, which will shut down your factory exactly as well as a fire would. So should you take these risks seriously? Yes, you should. And that's the language the top management understands.
I totally agree with that, Mikko. For my next questions, in your opinion, which domain will define the next decade of our industry? It's AI security, quantum-resistant cryptography, or perhaps something entirely different? What do you think?
Well, nobody knows. but we have regularly these technology revolutions, which always, they change the world. And every time we see them, they change the world for the better, but also for the worse. It happened with the internet revolution, happened with mobile phones, with cloud, with social media, maybe with blockchain as well. And now, of course, it's happening with generative AI. Excuse me. So what's going to be the next revolution? Well, it could be quantum. We don't know. The first time I read about quantum computers was also in the 1980s, just like I read about AI in the 1980s. And all these years, these decades, we were waiting for AI to become real. Well, now it's real. And all this time we've been waiting for quantum to become real. It could become real during our lifetime as well. And that's going to be obviously a very, very big shift. Again, for both sides, for benefits and for problems. It's almost funny that whenever I talk to people about quantum computers, and I ask them like what can be done with a quantum computer, the only example they know is that they can crack encryption. They have no idea what else it could be used for, which is almost ridiculous. Like, why are we building these quantum computers if the only thing they'll do is that they'll break all of our security systems? But of course, there are many, many upsides for quantum computers as well, including training completely new kinds of AI systems. So you could use quantum computers to train generative AI models, which sounds like a massive boost in productivity over there. The quantum resistant encryption systems, of course, exist already. Every time you send an iMessage from an iPhone to another, you're using quantum safe security algorithms. They've implemented it more than a year ago. Signal is quantum safe. The latest version of SSH is quantum safe. What's not quantum safe is your browser. So every time you go shopping, every time you go to an online bank with your browser, it's something that could be decrypted with a quantum computer. And of course, the real problem is that whatever we do today can be recorded, even though it can't be cracked today, but it can be cracked in the future. So private communication that you're sending today could be collected by intelligence agencies or spies, and they could crack it in a decade when quantum computers become real. So we should be migrating to quantum safe algorithms everywhere. Unfortunately, it's going to be a slower project than moving to IPv6. And if you remember how long we've been moving from IPv4 to IPv6, it sounds pretty bad. But this is a bigger project because we don't just have to upgrade every browser. We also have to upgrade every phone, every smartwatch, every car, every television. We spoke earlier about smart devices. Every single one of those smart devices has a TLS stack, which is running a quantum weak encryption, and we have to update all of them. It's going to take decades and decades before we've done that.
You know what's funny? When you said if even they are using IPv6, I know a lot of people, they even doesn't know I exist. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So that, yeah, you're right, mate. You know, I want to tell a story, a little short. You know, yesterday I was troubleshooting some servers with a colleague in London. I had a colleague in London. Even though we are both independent, you know, we rely on each other, you know, we help each other. We have different perspective, you know, timing, troubleshooting the usual chaos when you have some problems. Okay, right in the middle of the critical moment, he told me, "All right, mate, it's not from my side, it's your fucking side. I'm taking some beard." And I said, "Really? Oh my goodness." So I thought, well, if Amazon or Microsoft or Cloudflare, you know, make us wait 15 hours, so can we. I don't have any problem. So, but in the my wonder can we really trust the cloud? How do you feel about that? Or the hybrid options in the cloud can be safer bet? And do you think working in the cybersecurity today still demands a kind of digital, how do you call it? SISU. You know, that quiet persistence to deal with system pressure and human latency?
Thanks for referring to SISU, which is of course the Finnish property that that we're known for. Grit, not giving up, even when it's clear that you're going to lose, you still don't give up. That's the mindset that we're known for. Now, if you look at the security resources that companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Google are putting into the security of their cloud, those are some of the biggest security operations ever. They put billions and billions into securing their systems. They have a huge amount of people, some of the best experts working on that security. And then you think about the average company, which runs their own sales systems and their bookkeeping information and their email. Do you think they could compete in the security capabilities with Amazon? Do you think they would be able to create a better security environment? Do you think they could invest as much as these companies are doing? Do you think they could hire the kind of experts? And the answer to almost all organizations is no. There are some exceptions, like there's rules and regulations which make it mandatory for some governmental and defense systems to be managed locally and which cannot be taken into cloud, which means they need to take care of their own security. But for most companies and for most organizations, their data would be safer in cloud. So it feels bad, but it's the right choice. It feels bad for the same reason that, because we keep repeating how data is the most important, most valuable property for companies, and how data is the new oil, or data is the new gold. And if you believe it, and you should, then it feels weird that, hey, if this is the most valuable thing we have, why are we putting it somewhere else? Shouldn't we be guarding it by ourselves? But then you could think about your physical offices. Like you think about any factory or any office building. They have guards, but they don't typically have their own people guarding it in the middle of the night. They have a professional. They have a guard company or security company, and their guards. They've outsourced the security of their headquarters. And this is no different. You're outsourcing the security of your data.
I'm going to ask about the hacktivist movement. In these days, the people called hacktivists is attacking websites, making defacements and leaking data. And in the old days, being a hacktivist is like you giving freeware or giving free software on GitHub, making a free operation system. What do you think about is a real hacktivist for you?
It really depends. It is a loaded word. For many people, hacktivists mean like patriotic hackers who break the law for political purposes. But of course, for other people, it just means an activist, someone who wants to protest against wrongdoings. And just like we used to go and have riots on the streets or have a public demonstration, like a peaceful demonstration when a company or organization was doing something wrong, today the same thing happens online. Instead of having a demonstration outside the headquarters of an oil company because you don't like oil polluting the country, we would have an online demonstration, which would often then be a denial of service attack, shutting down the website of the oil company. But there is a difference. Having a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration, it's protected. It's not a crime. Breaking a website with a denial of service attack is a crime. So it's not exactly comparable. You could have the same kind of discussion about what a hacker means. And I think we've lost we've lost the traditional cause of explaining to people that hacker doesn't mean a criminal. It could be anybody, and it's just someone who's curious about technology. And you know that, I know that. The average people on the street, they don't understand that. If you speak about hackers, they think about criminals, and we're not going to be able to change that anymore.
Which case has worried you the most in your career?
Could be one of the early cases, like when I started analyzing viruses in the 1990s. They were typically boot sector viruses spreading on floppy disks like these. And many of the early floppy disk viruses spreading on 5 1/4-inch floppies like this one, or on 3 1/2-inch floppies, they spread surprisingly quickly and surprisingly globally, which is a bit surprising because these are physical viruses. You need to carry them from one computer to another. They use no networks. They don't use email. The only way you can spread it is that you take it and you travel. So the spreading speed is basically the same as it is for flu or COVID. People need to travel for these viruses like Form, Stone, or Brain for them to go around the world. But they did go around the world. Form even infected computers at the South Pole research stations, which is remarkable. Someone traveled even there with an infected floppy. But I think the one that really stuck with me is I Love You, because I still remember in May 2000, May 5th, 2000, 9:31 in the morning, we received an email sample of a new email worm. In 2000, 25 years ago, email worms were the biggest single problem. And this particular one, we got the first sample from Norway. We started analyzing it, and we realized very quickly that it's likely to become problematic because it was so effective. You got this malicious email from someone you knew, like your neighbor, and it came in an email which said, I love you. And then you open up the email and it says, please see the attached love letter coming from me. And there's an attachment called loveletterforyou.txt.vbs. And VBS is Visual Basic Script. It's a Windows script. If you click on the love letter, now you will send the same email as you to everybody in your address book, including your boss, your mother-in-law, your neighbors, everyone else. And of course, they will wonder what's going on and will click on the attachment, and now they will send it. And when the outbreak started, we spent the next 48 hours trying to fight the outbreak. We were the first ones to find it, first ones to add detection, first ones to warn the world, but we were late already. It went on to infect 200 million computers around the world. It became the largest malware outbreak of all time. I remember that very well.
Mikko, my next question is privacy dead? Do you believe big tech corporations are effectively spying on us with the tacit approval of the governments?
Well, yeah, privacy is dead, but it's not because of governments. Privacy is dead because of ads. Now, I remember when web became a thing. I set up the first website for our company in spring 1994. There were very few websites in the world. And I remember realizing that, this web is going to be a huge success story because it was so easy to use. We had internet before the web, but it was like FTP sites and command line interfaces. A normal person would never be able to use it, but web, you just click on links, you have images, it's very easy to use, it's going to be big. And I remember that we had this chat in the lab at F-Secure where I worked at the time. Well, actually, no, Data Fellows, which was the name of F-Secure before it was F-Secure. So in 1994, it would have been Data Fellows. And we were discussing about how this web is going to be big. Like, it's so easy to use. Eventually, there's going to be like services there. There's going to be newspapers. You could one day read news on the web or even get the weather report or the latest sports results. Who knows? Maybe one day you could watch movies online. That's what we were discussing in 1994. And then one of the guys in the lab stopped me and said, hold on, Mikko, how would that happen? Like, why would newspapers put their news online? Because if you go and buy the newspaper on paper, you pay money. But if it's online, it's free. Like, why would they put it online? And we had no idea. Of course, in 1994, we had no idea. So we were discussing and we guessed that, okay, probably there's going to be a payment button in the browser. Like, there's this article, it's interesting, I want to read it, and you click the button, click, click, and it's some kind of online currency, sort of like Bitcoin or something. And you would be able to pay like very small amounts of money, like cents or fractions of a cent with the press of a button, and then it would show you the article or play you the video or the movie or whatever. That's how we thought the web will be monetized. We thought it's going to be monetized with money. And we were wrong, because now, 25 years later, we still don't have the button. There's still no easy way for you to pay macro payments or micro payments from your browser if you want to read an article. The closest we have is that now there's some sites where articles are locked behind Apple Pay, so you could just pay the article with your phone, which is that's very, very close to what I was thinking about. But all this time, the alternative payment mechanism became a reality. Instead of the button to pay money for content, these content creators and these news sites and Facebook and Google created a system which will create profiles of everybody on the planet. They know who you are, they know where you live, they know who your friends are, they know what you like, they know what you hate. And the reason why they created this profile is that they can sell that information to advertisers. Or actually the other way around, they will give advertisers access to you. They're not going to share your name and address to advertisers, but they will tell to the advertisers that if you want to show your ad to someone living in Ecuador who's 45 years old and has 3 cats, we can do it. And that's going to match the people who live in Ecuador and are 45 years old and have 3 cats, because Google knows that, Facebook knows that, LinkedIn knows that. So these profiling mechanisms, which were originally built for ad purposes, can easily be misused for propaganda, for shaping opinions, and for changing the outcome of elections with these information operations. So to answer your question, yes, privacy is dead and Google killed it.
Finally, someone else say that. I really appreciate that. Mikko, what's about your pin that you got in your... What's your pin? It's about the Electronic Frontier Foundation, maybe?
No, it's actually from a Finnish military defense courses here in Finland, because we have 1,300 kilometers of border with Russia, which we fought before. Both my grandfathers fought the Russians in the Second World War. We have a mandatory draft service. So all males go and serve in the military. I served when I was 18 years old. And then you go back regularly. And I've been a teacher at the National Defense Courses for 23 years now. So I carry their pin. And nowadays, my day job is actually for a Finnish defense company. I worked in cybersecurity for 34 years. This summer, I changed jobs, and nowadays I work for a company called Sensor Fusion, which builds drone defense systems. So after creating antivirus systems for decades, now I'm creating anti-drone systems. And you would be surprised of all the similarities there are, because if you're detecting viruses and malware, you need samples. You need samples of these attacks so you can analyze them. Then you can pick a signature, you can build detections, then you test the detection, create an update, and send an update to all of your customers so they can detect the unknown malware. And with drones, we, for example, have our software-defined radio boxes sitting in Ukraine in the front lines. And when there's a drone flying which is not detected by our drone detectors, they will record radio traffic and they will send it to us with the push of a button. They will send a sample, which we will analyze and look for the protocols. We will pick a signature. We will create an update. We'll test the update, and then we send the update to all of our customers around the world to detect unknown drones. There's lots of different things as well, but there's lots of similarities to my old career. And that's what I'm doing as a day job nowadays.
And that's great. You know, this is an amazing story. Have an honor for us, you know, an honor to have you here. That's why I was wondering what's about. Yeah, so you just explained that. And how
Let
it
me
made you
also
feel.
mention my pocket square, because when I resigned from WITSEC earlier this year, they gave me a pocket square which is filled with photos of
It's
the last 30
amazing.
years as I was working at the company. So
It's great. It's great.
greetings to Sandra,
Nice.
who actually created this pocket square for me to remind myself of the 34 years I spent with the company. I wear it often.
So great, so great. We appreciate that to share with us, you know, this is, you know, something personal, and this is what we are doing, that we are doing, isn't it? It's about purpose. It's about too many things. It's kind of sometimes kind of difficult to explain to everybody, you know. It's not easy. It's not easy. So it make you feel like maybe for someone else it's just a pin, but you know, for you it's more than it's have a story. It's like, what your story? I know my story, you know. It's kind of that. So I'm so glad to appreciate that you share with us. So finally, to my question, it's not about question, you know, it's some like I'm thinking about you have helped say how the world thinks about digital threats, but what's something about you? You know, I want you to do something. Forget that you are an expert and forget all that kind of things. I know it's kind of difficult to it's not to forget. It's like I want to talk with the human, with that with Mikko. Is that right now he's not connected. He's only itself, you know. I want you to feel you right now like alone. No connection, no war, no security things, no threats, no ransomware. Oh, beautiful word, isn't it? Well, how makes you feel? How is the human side from you? Can you share with us something?
I love nature. I love being able to go alone in the woods and enjoy silence. I live in an area of Finland where it's very quiet. There's no neighbors close by. There's a forest that starts from my backyard. I can walk there, and it's just me or anybody that I'm going for a walk with, and silence. Maybe a little bit of birds, but otherwise wind. And that's the great thing about living in a large country with very few people. Finland is one of the larger countries in Europe, where we only have 5 million people. There's a lot of space here, and that's why I love Finland. I've been traveling very, very heavily over the last 30 years. I've been to Central and South America tens of times during these years. I've spent a lot of time at airports and in airplanes, but I've always come back home to Finland. I've lived my whole life here in Finland. It might have been easier to live somewhere, maybe in United States or at, I don't know, somewhere Central Europe where you have better flight connections. But I like Finland. It's very peaceful. It's very silent. And I don't need the internet when I'm in the forest.
What do you consider to be the key factors that have defined your professional success throughout your career?
I strongly believe in setting goals for yourself. that's the one thing I always tell to people, especially young people, when they think about their career. Decide where you want to be in 10 years. Decide what you want to do in 10 years. Decide who you want to be in 10 years. Set goals. The hard part is coming up with the goals. But if there's something that you're passionate about, something that you want to accomplish, you should set a goal for yourself, even if it's really far away, really a stretch goal. Still, once you have a goal, then when you have to make decisions, should I go and work for this company, or should I go and work for this company? Should I study this? Should I study that? If you have a goal, every decision you make will direct you towards that goal. And we tend to reach our goals if we set them realistically and we work on them for a very long time. That's what I've done myself. Set goals, or other people will direct your life. You don't want to drift through your life and end up into a random place where other people are pointing you to. You want to point yourself to where you want to be. This is what I've done, and I'm happy to say that the last goal that I set for myself in my previous job was doing keynote talks in the 3 largest cybersecurity conferences in the world, DEF CON, Black Hat, and RSA. And on the last summer, the last week that I worked at WithSecure, I reached the last of those 3 talks. So I did reach my goals there. If you're going to ask me what's the goals that I have right now, don't have them yet. I'm still getting into this new gig with drone defense and defense contractors, but I will set goals for myself here as well once I know exactly what I want. So that's the trick. Set goals for yourself. Remember your goals. Think about your goals. Work toward your goals. You run your life, no one else.
Mikko, thank you very much for joining us today on La Jaula del Noob. It's been an incredible, valuable conversation, not only for those of us who work in cybersecurity, but for anyone who wants to better understand the digital world we live in. Your insights, experience, and ability to explain complex topics so clearly give us a lot of things about regarding the present and future of security, privacy, and technology. Thank you for your time and for sharing your knowledge with our community. And to everyone listening, thank you for being with us once again on La Jaula del Noob. Muy bien, muchísimas gracias a todos. Esto fue La Jaula del Noob.
Gracias.